Greetings, one and all. Thanks for joining. Let's let some folks roll on here in the next minute or two. Good evening, Will. Thanks for giving us a little bit of your Tuesday evening. Ben Hoyne here and Alexis Miller. And we'll just give folks another minute and then we will get going. Anyone has any limericks or anything they want to share? Haikus, a good 60 seconds, 30 seconds. The floor is now yours. Keep them PG-13 at least. Please.
Will unmuted, so I thought you were going to add something.
No, I just forgot I was unmuted. I'm too used to Teams calls where I go in and I'm automatically muted.
Sounds like Lewis is volunteering to offer up a limerick. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get going. Thank you, everybody, for joining. As mentioned, Ben Hoyne, Alexis Miller, we're part of your Virginia team at Solar United Neighbors. I am based here in the capital, Richmond, Virginia. Alexis is a former Richmond resident, but she has recently relocated to the sunny Southwest. Hopefully we'll get her back here before too long. But just to give you an idea of what we're kind of doing today, some of you all might have been on some calls that we had this past spring, where we kind of really, for the first time since the pandemic started, kind of tried to renew or reinvigorate kind of a monthly action team or something along those lines. And we kind of had a variety of topics, and it was a bit of a potpourri, and there wasn't really any consistency to it. We found that it would fluctuate, and some folks were interested in one topic, but not another. And so we took the summer off, as we should do. Hopefully everyone got out and about and got some vitamin D this summer, and now we're kind of restarting as we're into September here, and we're going to attempt to see what this group is like when it's more of a focused on solar advocacy, policy, that type of space. More of a limited duration. I think probably many folks know that here in Virginia, the General Assembly meets in the wintertime. So that's usually January to March or so, late February, early March. And then there's some kind of lingering legislative stuff usually that happens into April or something along those lines. So this will be, not a 12-month engagement by any means, probably more like a 6 to 8 months or something like that. Just going to kind of see what folks think about it. See, is it necessary now with kind of our virtual world and virtual advocacy and all these things? Is this a good use of folks' time? And so the 6 of us are really the guinea pig, and I thank you all again for sharing some of your Tuesday evening. And so we are going to cover letters to the editor and some kind of timely opportunities there. But before we do that, I might as well just do a quick round of introductions, especially since we're a small group. A couple things. One, obviously your name, where you're tuning in from, maybe your utility, and then whether or not you have solar, and if you do or don't, what the reason for that is. So I'll go ahead. I'm as mentioned, Ben Hoyne in Richmond, Virginia. Dominion is my electric utility, and I got solar not quite 12 months ago. Wanted to get solar for a long time. Was in a renter for many years. The first house that I was in was massively shaded and probably didn't really face the right direction anyways. And so couldn't get solar there. And then when we looked to move just a few years ago, I really had an eye out to have a roof that was potentially suitable for solar. And so fortunately, we did manage to get a house that was suitable for solar. So as mentioned, I got solar last November. So I guess about 10 months or so. So I'll turn over Alexis, and then we'll hear from each of you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks so much for that introduction, Ben. As he said, my name's Alexis Miller, and I'm the community impact specialist for this region, Virginia being one of those states. And I'm super excited to see some familiar faces and some new folks here as we continue to build the solar movement in Virginia. I do not have solar, unfortunately, as I'm renting currently, but hope to at some point. Michael, I'm going to turn it over to you. And once you finish, if you want to call on someone else, will help us keep moving.
My name is Mike Curran. I live in Louisa County. Been here 17 years, and I don't have solar yet. I just had a new roof put on my house at the end of last month. So I'm probably about 18 months away from being able to start that process. But I look forward to learning more about it over the next 18 months and then some, and going from there. And Lewis, you want to go next?
Okay, this is Lewis Hopkins. I'm near Roanoke, Virginia. I do have some solar power at my house. I have a system that operates refrigerator and freezer, full-time off-grid, and I'm looking to expand my solar system.
Great. Lewis, do you have Appalachian Power, or are you with an electric co-op?
I'm with Craig Botetourt Electric Co-op.
Great. Thank you. John, you want to go ahead?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, John Ward up in Falls Church, Virginia, although I'm on travel right now and I'm sharing some very limited bandwidth, so I'm keeping my camera off to do everything I can to not crash us both. I'm in Falls Church. It's Dominion, and I do not have solar. Do own a house. There's good oak tree shade till about 10, and there's this poplar next to it that belongs to my neighbor adjacent to our house, which is growing rapidly and will basically overshadow everything in another 5 years. So didn't make sense there. And then there's more trees off to the south by about 3 or in the afternoon that shade everything. So don't have solar, but do a lot of advocacy for as much as we can in the city. So I'm just outside DC up north.
Great. Will?
Hi, everyone. I'm from Henrico County, and currently I rent. And so I'm one of those many folks where solar is out of reach. And so if there's anything I can advocate for, the one thing is community solar that I can invest in, because I'm a renter. And so it's like solar. I like solar and wind and hydro and other forms of renewable energy, but it's one of those things where it's not, I'm like one of those many renters where it's irrelevant to me because I rent. I want to change that.
Great. Thank you, Will. And Michael, I didn't catch where you were calling from.
Louisa County, and I have a Rappahannock
Great.
cooperative.
Excellent. We got a great mixture here. And looks like Wayne is joining in. Welcome, Wayne. We're just doing a round of intros, looking for name, location, your utility, and whether you have solar or not, and why that might be, whether you're a renter or shading or myriad of reasons that make solar a challenge to get, if you're comfortable sharing. And Wayne, we can't hear you. I don't know if you're on mute on your end. Or you can put it in the chat. There you go, Woodbridge. Okay. No mic, not a problem, Wayne. Appreciate it. We'll start moving forward. So, this is really, as I mentioned, a great kind of cross section of geographies from across the Commonwealth. In addition, a cross section of electric utilities, and a wide variety of reasons that folks have been unable to go solar. And as I mentioned, I've shared many of those reasons, and that's actually one of the things the main thing we're here for today is to talk about community solar, the opportunities that are present right now for community solar in the Commonwealth. And then the hopes are that, maybe a few of you, all of you, one of you would be interested in writing a letter to the editor of your local paper or some paper in your region. To give you a sense of what community solar is and what the opportunities are currently, and apologies for folks that kind of already know this. I know I heard community solar come up, but more or less community solar is off-site solar that can be, it could be large utility scale, but ideally not that, ideally more of a smaller solar project that's kind of in your area, in your region. It could be on the roof of a large commercial building. It could be over a parking lot. It could be in the cul-de-sac or on the side of a highway and some of that unused space. A lot of different possibilities for where community solar could be. And then what you in essence would do would be to kind of lease or rent or whatnot a subscription to that solar. So it wouldn't be solar that you own necessarily, although there's certainly probably ways to do that as well. But it's in essence, you kind of sign up for a share of that solar electricity. Sometimes it's also called shared solar as well, depending on the program. And the great thing about shared solar or community solar, you can be a renter, right? And so it's accessible to folks. You can have shading in your house, and you don't have to have a home that's suitable for solar. Additionally, it's not a long-term commitment like you would have with solar. Generally, we view solar as a 25-year kind of commitment, right? It's usually about 10 years, 8 to 10 years to pay back your investment, but the systems are going to last for about 25 years. So if someone's a renter, or if someone might be moving, or for whatever reason, or just is unsure of what the future might bring, getting solar in your home can be a challenge. Whereas getting a subscription, a share of community solar can be much more, much more workable. Additionally, you saw many of the same benefits from, residential solar, in that usually you can buy a commitment for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, what have you. You'll be insulated from price increases, right? I think just yesterday, or I believe it was yesterday, the SCC approved a 12-month extension of a 12% price increase for Dominion territory, and that's due to the increase of natural gas and other fuels. And I know Appalachian Power is seeking an increase as well, maybe not quite 12%, but a significant 6%, 8% increase in a single year. Usually, historically, we've seen a 2 to 3% increase in electric utility rates, and so 12%, obviously, with the global natural gas stuff that's happening in Ukraine and on down the line, prices have jumped significantly. Whereas if you're invested in solar, you're kind of protected from those price increases. So community solar can be a great option for a variety of reasons. And the Virginia General Assembly in 2020 set up upon a law, created legislation that kind of required the creation of a community solar program or a shared solar program via Dominion at the very least. that has just in this calendar year, gone through the State Corporation Commission and a rulemaking process. Unfortunately, there's what's called the minimum bill, and this is kind of the bill that's everything that's not solar, that's not your electricity rates. Dominion advocated for a bill that I think was around $75 a month. We and others advocated for a bill that was around $10 a month. This is, again, kind of the minimum charge. The SCC split the baby, and between 75 and 10, they came up with 55 as a compromise. I'm not quite sure how that math works out, but that's where we are. Certainly something that we hope will get changed, and we're working on it, but it's not a new thing, and not something that'll be quickly remedied. And that potentially has a lot of problems, because as you look to solar developers and other community projects that potentially would look to create these shared solar programs, they're going to be looking for, how much does it cost to invest in this solar array? And then what are the potential customers that we have to pay back this investment? And just now, as of a few months ago, all the potential customers, y'all that are in Dominion territory and anyone else, is going to be saddled with a potential $55 bill, again, plus their electricity, plus the solar. So that would significantly increase folks' monthly electricity bills just to have access to shared solar. So that's problematic, and something we're working on addressing. In terms of Appalachian Power and the rural electric cooperatives, Craig Botetourt, Rappahannock, etc., those are kind of in the conversation phase right now with the State Corporation Commission, and so there hasn't been a ruling. There hasn't even been a kind of a pitch or to have a ruling. I think that'll come next year. Right now, there's kind of stakeholder work groups that I and others at Solar United Neighbors are involved in, where we're kind of trying to kind of craft that program and really saying that the Dominion program is problematic, and let's not go down that path. And so I think the opportunity that we're looking at is kind of trying to get that word, that message out to media and to the general public that, hey, there's some potential shared solar, community solar programs that are coming down the pipe, and we want to make sure that they're workable and affordable for us, so that we could use them. So that for those of you that are in kind of their Craig Botetourt and Rappahannock territory, it could be a great opportunity to write an op-ed a letter to the editor expressing your support for this process to result in a workable, affordable program. And then as far as those in Dominion territory, it could be an opportunity to lament about the minimum bill, the $55 minimum bill, and talk about how that needs to be reformed. And we're not the only ones talking about that. Even the patrons of that legislation, Senator Scott Surabel up in Northern Virginia, and former Delegate Jay Jones in Norfolk, have expressed those concerns as well. So none of this is a short-term fix, but we're kind of trying to get this issue, out into the public discourse. And so wanted to kind of use this opportunity tonight to kind of talk about letters to the editor, and how to do those, and what those look like, and give folks some kind of basics on that. So I know I've been talking a lot. I'll go ahead and stop there to see if there's any questions about shared solar, the program, any interest or desire in potentially writing a letter to the editor. The good news about a letter to the editor is they're really short. It is in essence a letter. Usually it's about 150, 250 words. It would be you kind of telling a story about yourself and why shared solar, community solar is important. We could certainly provide some information with you, help you edit it, all sorts, give you as much or as little support as you need, and certainly encourage you to send it to certain places. The Washington Post might be a challenge. Usually it's a challenge to get into the Post. But there's some newspapers up in Northern Virginia. Obviously in Henrico's, we have the Richmond Times-Dispatch, the Roanoke Times. In Louisa, I don't know the local paper there, maybe the Daily Progress or something out of Charlottesville, or maybe there's more of a local option in Falls Church, or I think there's a Fairfax paper as well. So again, I'll stop there and see if we have any questions. Wayne or anyone else, feel free to put them in the chat as well. But just, wanted to take temperature on if folks would be interested and amenable to writing a letter to the editor in support of a usable, functional, affordable community solar, shared solar program.
So I would be willing to write a letter. I'd probably ask for some help maybe with the editing, and as specific as you wanted to get on the subject matter. But I want to make sure, so shared solar is specific to someone who does not have the ability to put solar on their own property? Is that right?
It doesn't really matter if you have the ability or not. That's kind of not, it's more or less if you would, it's a different path to get solar, right? So you could have the ability to get solar, but you don't want to, for whatever reason. You don't want to spend the money, you don't want to make the 25-year commitment, right? So it's not like, oh, hey, you could get solar on your house, so you're excluded. That's not true. It would be it's kind of another option. I mean, sometimes you might see these utility programs where they can, pay $5 a month and you get green power or something like that. Those are really kind of loosey-goosey in terms of what is green power and this and that. And this is more of in essence, a pay a supplemental fee. Maybe it's $10 a month, where you're in essence you're buying your electricity from usually it's a third party. It's not usually developed by the utility, although the electric cooperative certainly might be interested in doing so. So it's in essence you're saying, I want to have, it could be 50%, 75%, 100% solar energy. I want to buy a share or multiple shares of this to cover my electricity load. The city of Harrisonburg, actually, they're their own utility, Harrisonburg Electric Cooperative. So the city of Harrisonburg and residents of Harrisonburg, they get their electricity from the city, as in Richmond and many places, gas and those kind of things. And they've actually just rolled something like this out. And so in essence, you're able to buy, blocks of shares of solar, so that you're not kind of at the whims of whatever is coming across the grid, so to speak. But it's all mixed into the grid. It's in, you're in essence supporting these solar developments, and then the price is again more locked in than Dominion's kind of or any other utilities. Every 12-month review, you're just locking in something else that's 100% solar, 50% solar, what have you.
Yeah, I'd be willing to try my hand at that.
Great, thanks, Michael. Any other questions, comments, interest?
This is John Ward here. Good. I guess my understanding of the way the shared solar has shaken out, and I'd be interested in finding out where the multifamily shared solar, what your view of how that's proceeding is. But the shared solar isn't exact. My understanding, it's not $55 a month. It's like 5.5 cents a kilowatt hour. And then for 1,000 kilowatt hour home, which is just an easy average that people that Dominion and others use, that shakes out at $55 a month. But you could sign up for less, and you could also just, if you're only a 300 kilowatt hour per month house, it's 5.5 cents a kilowatt hour is the base, and then you pay whatever the shared solar subscriber organization is going to charge you for, the solar power amortizer, whatever their monthly cost is, and whatever their administrative fee is, what they need to make a profit or cut it. So
You are correct.
And so, and also, and the way it's shaking out, I mean, it's, as we kind of saw this coming about a year ago, maybe I think the people in the field probably saw it maybe right as soon as those legislation was written and as soon as Dominion started putting their first proposal. But about a year ago, it kind of became you kind of saw that this could easily become, and it may, and people are saying that more now, it could easily become an all low income program.
Right.
Because the low income folks are not subject to the minimum bill. It's like $1, or it's fairly low. It's $1 participation fee and fractions of a few cents or something. It's much less. And so these 5 megawatt and under kind of plants that want to sell into this shared solar market could all just be marketed directly to low income folks, and they can get a lot more for their money because you don't have the minimum bill. And it basically gets subsidized by the ratepayers. In the fact that the low income folks can now be paying maybe 3 cents minimum on their kilowatt hour minimum bill, or 2 cents plus a lot more now. There's a lot more margin that the solar plants can the subscriber organizations and the solar power plants can sell their power into. So they may all want to just sell, may want to just all sell into some low income programs. And that can be, there's like 200 megawatts of capacity there if they want to do it, right? So the cap on the program. So it's not a bad, in my opinion, it's not bad because it's another way to, in addition to what the renewable portfolio standard calls for, there's this extra 200 megawatts that can be incentivized if the developers want to build it, and if you can sign up enough participants to do it. I'd be interested in your take on whether, with this new increase in the rates the next few years, that gives a bigger margin there for the developers to sell their power. If you can sign people up for a 3-year commitment or 1 or 5 years, whatever the commitment is, to kind of get the difference between 5.25 cents or 5.5 cents a kilowatt hour, and now it's 14.5 cents or something, 14.5 cents a kilowatt hour at Dominion rates. This is what I'm talking, because this was a Dominion program.
Right.
With that 12% increase, maybe we're closer to 14 cents a kilowatt hour now. So there's a little bit more margin for the solar plants to work with. So are you seeing that in any solar? So one observation is that this could all be low income, which is not a bad thing. It's not what the authors of the legislation had in mind, but it may help. It may, there's more solar out there. But it's heard that that the developers are all just kind of backing off of this market because nobody wants to try to to build plants and try to sell into a place that has a 5.5 cent markup on it already. Or so one observation and one question.
Yeah, and thank you for that, John. Appreciate it. Yeah, a couple of things. So you're absolutely right in terms of the $55 minimum bill based on 1,000 megawatts, which is kind of a common mathematic equation. So I believe your calculations are correct in terms of what it would actually cost. And it's prorated based on how many you use, right? And so whether it's 100% or 50%, so it can even actually be more than that. I think it gets kind of complicated. In terms of a low income program, absolutely. I think the initial floor is 45 megawatts of installed capacity. So we could see, and then it can be kind of expanded, I think, as you mentioned, up to 200 megawatts. And so having 45 megawatts of low income installations is significant. The low income installations are exempt from the minimum bill. So they would just be paying, I believe, and I'm not an installer, so we read the newspapers and talk to installers just like you and others. But yeah, would be paying in essence solely the electricity rates, and so that would be tremendous to get a 45 megawatts installed for low income homeowners. As far as the multifamily, I haven't heard recently. I believe that's still being weighed by the SCC. If they came to a decision, I haven't seen it, but I could have missed it. That's possible. So there's concerns, I think, on in terms of what that'll cost as well. But and that's multifamily, renters and other kind of multifamily establishments. So any solar installed, residential distributed solar, we at Solar United Neighbors certainly view as great. And there was another part of your question I think I'm forgetting. There was one more piece.
No, I think you covered everything. I was just there's the observation about, there's 150 megawatts, of which at least 45 megawatts had to be low income, but there was no ceiling on it could be low income. Could be all 150 megawatts could be. It was just, they wanted to have at least 45 that way. And then I just questioned about the multifamily, and I haven't heard anything new about that. I think that's still part of the SCC too.
Yeah. And the last point about installers and will they build projects? Haven't spoken to any installers, this week when these kind of new rates, to your point, the 12% increase, which would take us to 14 cents or something like that a kilowatt hour. We've been at 11.5 cents, I believe. So I haven't spoken with any installers in the last 24 hours, so I don't know if the appetite has changed, but did speak with installers and the industry last week, and their expectation is that there wouldn't be any kind of full freight projects, at least from kind of the organizations that they represent. That's not to say there wouldn't be any period in kind of the traditional market. Although in terms of low income, we have already seen, I think, a few press releases, at least from like I don't know if it was the Richmond Housing Authority and something in Petersburg as well, creating low income specific programs. And so there's certainly kind of an opportunity there for low income folks, a question mark for the folks paying full freight. I think that, and if it was just low income folks, probably wouldn't help folks on the call here, but certainly, the install capacity, I think would be great. And so, that's probably a long way of saying, if, again, back to kind of the original point, if folks wanted to write an LTE about the minimum bill, we could help, and we would certainly dig into it and have the numbers correct and all those kind of things. But to your point, John, if it was solely a low income program, that wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing in the world, especially if they could increase the capacity.
Yeah.
And I think that the other thing that we're thinking is, as we see the Appalachian Power work group and the Rural Electric Cooperative work group, there's an opportunity to kind of get out in front of it a bit and say, hey, let's make sure that we build something that works for folks. Not just low income. Low income's obviously set by the federal government in terms of income requirements and that sort of thing. And so there are a lot of that folks don't quite meet the federal definition of low income, but certainly, would not call themselves affluent by any means, and would love to lower their energy bills and, take more charge of their energy as well. And sorry if there's kids screaming in the background. I can hear them at my house. So hopefully it's far enough away, it's not coming up on the mic. So. And as Alexis put in the chat, we certainly have resources that we can help in writing a letter to the editor, and she's going to send those out. The good news is it's not a deadline of next week or anything like that. I think most of these are hoping to be wrapped up in November, the APCO one and the Rural Electric Cooperative one. In terms of anything of substance happening to the Dominion program, certainly don't expect any changes to that in 2022 at a minimum, and realistically probably into 2023. It'll be a good while. I don't know that the legislature would want to mandate a change of the SCC decision or something like that. That would be probably my political prognostication would be a surprise to see such a legislation pass this coming session at the very least. So there's time on that, and kind of, John, to your point, now as we've seen rates rise, maybe that we end up building out things a bit more, and get our heads wrapped more around the low income potential programs and all that. So there's not as much of a a hard and fast deadline. I think for us, is trying to kind of convene this group. We know that the fall in terms of Virginia politics is in an off-year election, right? We're voting on federal stuff this year, but not on state politics this year. And so it's kind of a quiet time. So a good time to kind of get letters together and other things out into the general discourse. So that was mostly what we, wanted to kind of talk about today. As Alexis mentioned, we've got some resources that we'll certainly follow up with you all via email. We'd be happy to help in any way that you would like, or as little as you would like. Again, whether that's in crafting, getting thorough, accurate information, data, or even helping to connect you with newspapers and media in your region. But yeah, we're not like going through a training or anything like that. It's really pretty straightforward. Certainly, if you're interested in something like that, we have a basic template, but it's really as simple as, this is who I am. I want to go solar. I can't because of X, Y, and Z, and we can help provide the X, Y, and Z. And you could, talk about your shading, or talk about being a renter, or talk about this, that, or the other, and then ultimately send it in to media in your neck of the woods. So unless there's other comments, questions, we'll certainly let you have the rest of your evening, and we'll follow up with you all offline via email.
Yeah, and just so everyone's aware, we are meeting monthly, so we'll have another meeting next month. I'll include that in the follow-up email as well, so you're aware, but learning different advocacy skills to be able to prepare for the session that will be kicking off in January. So thank you all for being here, and I'll include our email on that as well. So feel free to follow up with Ben or I, and we'd be happy to provide any help or answer any questions along the way.
Good deal. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, y'all. Take care.
Dude.